Okay, so that's our recording being started. So I might just get kicked off now then, folks. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes. I'll briefly set the scene and just contextualize the report automation tool. I'll tell you a little bit about its value and who might benefit from it. So just getting started. Hopefully you can see my slides change. Okay, so in 2021, just to set the scene, a subgroup of StudentSurvey.ie impact and analysis group came together to discuss the creation of a report automation tool. We realized we were all investigating the data in different ways and saw an opportunity to bring our skills together. It quickly became apparent that Blaj and Sean and Linda were leading the way in terms of automated report development. And at the same time, as well as this happening, we've also got literature coming around, being risen around the areas of the potential barriers to the analysis of student feedback. So first is unclear goals. What are we looking for? And a sort of lack of clarity around what the goals are whenever people are analysing it. A second barrier is the unequal data literacy. So it's often the people that are able to analyse the data that get to use it and get to benefit from it. So that's another barrier to making use of student feedback. The third that has been identified in the literature is the concerns of ethics and privacy around the data. Who's going to see the raw data? Can they see the comments that the students are making about me? Concerns like that. And now the report automation tools that are being presented today facilitate efficient and goal-oriented analysis that addresses the first of the barriers. It reduces the time costs and skills needed to carry out complex manual analysis, which is the second barrier. And finally, it negates the concerns relating to anonymity as well. The raw data is automatically analysed, which makes it much more supportive around the issues around anonymity. So I'll just move this on now. So in terms of what do you need? What Blaj will be presenting today is will require a web browser and your institute file. So for me, it would be the ATU data file 2022, but you'll see it's the raw data files that you get in each year for your institute. The analysis that has been carried out and the scripts that have been created by Linda, Sean and Blaj make use of RStudio, and there's lots of resources on the Student Survey website. If you go into the subcategory of tools to support analysis, you'll find lots of resources for both carrying out the automated reporting as well as interpreting the data. And after all of this, what do you get? Well, there's lots of different types of analysis. There's indicator analysis. It goes down to individual items, to qualitative analysis as well, to the COVID data analysis. There's a wealth of information that you get using just a few of the software, just a little bit of software. So why? Well, it's time efficient. So you can upload and go. There's no need to be manually carrying out the analysis. It supports reproducibility and open science. We can repeat it over time and between groups. It also sets a standard for quality benchmarking and interpretation so that we're not carrying out different types of analysis each year and then not being able to compare them. It also supports collaboration as well, so we can combine expertise. It's not just the people that have the time and the skill sets to conduct the manual analysis, but everyone can access this and everyone can make use of it. And in that way, we get more expertise and we can spend our time then making sense of the data and interpreting it and designing interventions. So who might use it? Well, analysts can use it in identifying institutional trends. Communications and marketing teams might use it to disseminate information. They might identify programs that are particularly strong collaborative learning that might be of interest to potential students. Students' unions can use it to detect opportunities to enhance the experiences of students, and management can use it for informing institutional policy and strategy. Now I'm going to pass you on to Blaj, who will begin his presentation. So I will just stop sharing and pass on to Blaj, if that's okay. Or Blaj, would you prefer if I just went straight into your slides?
Yeah, if you just go into the next slide, I just have two of them and then I'll share my screen anyways.
Okie doke. All right.
Yeah.
So
like it's just a quick slide on how the report automation tool works. You can click once or twice just to get the next one. There you go. So basically it takes the Excel file, it uploads the data onto a server, and that's where all the calculations are done. And then what you get out of it is the report. But obviously the problem is the uploads to the server because it leaves your computer. So what I'll be showing you today is how to actually use RStudio on your own computer to just calculate and do all the reporting on your own computer without the data ever leaving your your internet, your network. So it's all safe and secure on your computer. I'm not sure if I have another slide. I think if I do, if you click next. Yes. So the getting started is basically everything you need for the reports to work is on the link in the GitHub, and the instructions are there as well. And I will share my screen now and we'll go through how to run it, how to set it up, and then actually through the report itself. So I'll see. Right, I'll just share my whole screen. I hope you're seeing my screen now. If not, just let me know. But this is basically the GitHub website that you get when you follow the link. And all the instructions are here as well. So you can see how to run it locally, all the instructions. And on this website, all you have to do is click the code button and download zip. This will then download all the files that you see here into on your computer, and then just follow the instructions, open the R projects file, and then we will open RStudio, and this is what you will see. It's a blank project file with all the files that you downloaded here. What you have to then do to start running the report is you click the server, and it opens up a bunch of R code, which doesn't really matter. You will find an install libraries button, which you need to click, and that will take a while to install all the libraries that are used. And once that is done, all you have to do is just click Run App. And now the whole app is running on your computer. So this is all what you see on a website as well, if it would be on a website. So now what you have to do is choose the Excel file of the raw data. So I have some test file here for the 2022. Once that is uploaded, if it's done correctly, you will see the number of students loaded in. You will see a quick institutional profile and some more information here as well. You then select the report. So for this example, I'm selecting the Student Survey 2022. We have the 2021 as well. And then technically next year when the next results come out, you could use this one as well, as far as nothing changes. But I will be making a separate report before the results come out. So you will be able to, as soon as you get the data, just start this up, select the 2023 and get the report immediately. So like the same day you get the results, you can get the report as well. You can select the comparison. So, you know, the StudentSurvey.ie, the other institutions and whatever you're interested in. I'll just keep with the StudentSurvey.ie. And the number of n-grams will be relevant later on in the report. I'll show you what it means, but it's basically controls one of the variables in the report. And then all that's left is you download the report. In R, you will see the report started running. You will see the percentages ticking and all the reports being generated. Now, while it's being generated, I will just open the actual report that is generated to save some time because it takes a while. Right, so this is the report that you get. I will just increase the size a little bit. You see a bit of introduction into the student survey. You see the general response numbers. You have the indicator overview. So these are all the indicator scores that will be matching all the InTouch indicator scores. The coloring is only looking at the numbering from 0 to 60, so it's not as informative, but you see a general overview. So for example, the student-faculty interaction could be completely fine, but because it is the lowest number, it's being colored red, and that's something I'll be fixing for the 2023 report anyways. And let's see, for example, let's student-faculty interaction. If we now look comparison to the national average, so this is comparing to the average that you've selected in the drop-down menu. So here, for example, we can see that student-faculty interaction in this data set is actually above average for all postgraduates, first years, and final years. So this is, in a way, a more informative look at the indicators. And this then changes depending on the average that you select. Same goes for the institutional profile. So we see the profile and the national average is the blue background, and the institution is the orange outline. So you can quickly see where the institution is doing well, where it's perhaps a bit under the national average. And again, some of these images, the report is generated, so now I can just save it to my downloads file. I'll just cancel because it is done. But that's how it looks. Right, so now if we go further down, we see the qualitative analysis. So again, a bit of an introduction of what engrams are and how it is displayed and how we can use the table. So we see here a question. I've just scraped some tweets from the student survey, and that is basically what it's displaying here. But you can see how they're connecting, how, for example, StudentSurvey.ie is obviously used with a lot of links, so you can see how that is its own little bubble here. And you see a lot of bubbles. So the engram numbers I mentioned before, if you increase that, it will increase the threshold of how many mentions of how many words, how many times this word has to appear before it shows up in the cloud. So for example, if you're a big institution and you have a lot of qualitative responses, this will be a big mess. So you will have to increase the engram number to only get the one responses that are more often commented. And equally, if you're a small institution, you lower the engram numbers to see some of the responses. And then if there is not enough information in the qualitative comments, because you do need at least a few hundred responses, it'll just say that there is not enough information and it won't display the cloud, this visual here. But I do find it is quite informative to just have a quick overview of thousands of qualitative comments that pop out. And then you have the drop-down menu here where you can look by different groups. You can filter down by course. You can look at the questions, and you can also filter. So I don't know, if we look for HEA, we see different mentions of the HEA in the report or in the comments. And that is then made for all the different questions, qualitative questions in the 2022 survey. Cool. There's also the withdrawal question that is presented here, and the other text questions on if there was another reason for withdrawal. So that's here. Now, this is the result of not a big enough engram. So that's how, if you pick a bigger number, this will then be fixed. Then the last one that I will be showing is the indicator analysis. So this is every indicator in the student survey. We have a look at that indicator. There's a quick short description on it because initially this report was meant to be sent to management so they can look at the indicators and understand what the indicators are and how they're which questions make up that indicator. So we see the scores. This is just a sum of all the scores for every question. Now we have comparison between study groups. So this is looking between all the study groups. It's looking whether the difference is significant. So if it is significant, you will see a little asterisk, and the more significant it is, the more of them there will be. And you also see the means displayed here and the distributions. And then we have the total response. So this is the Likert scale questions. They obviously look quite nice because the data is generated on its own right now. But they're sorted by the most positives to the more negative ones. You see all the questions here. One thing to note, that these indicator questions and the percentages are not weighted, because when I was making this report, I was more interested in what our students are saying and not as much in what the most average student, because if we have a lot of females, for example, I was interested in what every female is saying and not downgrade their votes because there's more of them. And if we use the weights, that would equalize it, and it would give the male students more weight on their voice. And when I'm looking at actual specific indicators like questions, I'm more interested in the actual responses. I can add eventually the weighted responses as well if that is of interest. But on InTouch and all the other reports that you get, you will have the weighted results displayed, and these ones are not. While you look at the indicators, those display the weighted scores. Just a little tidbit there. But yeah, so that's basically then how the report looks for every indicator. You then break it down by study group. So that's the first year's postgraduates, and you can see the differences there as well. You see the negative and positive, and you see how many students responded versus how many didn't respond. And then we go by faculty group. Now this is actually can change depending on what variable you use and how to use the specific, like the free choice variables and how you define the groups there. But I have the faculty group. Again, if you're a big institution and you might have several faculties or several breakdown groups, there might be a lot of responses here and a lot of choices here. I'm not sure how that will display because I didn't have that kind of data set. And if there's any issues ever with displaying the results, you can email me and I'll find a way to tweak it so that this display is good for institutions of all sizes, because you might have several options here and it might be less visible or less legible in the end. And then we have the campus group as well for me, but this might change depending on what you put into your grouping variables. We also have missing data. So the missing data it just shows how many missing answers are based on the different questions. So for example, if we look, there's obviously 63 students who haven't answered any. So those are the ones that didn't even attempt to answer this part of the questionnaire. And then we have 6 who haven't answered the activities and events. Then we have 1 who didn't answer this question, because all these questions are not mandatory. So you don't have to answer. So you just see if there's particular questions that are being skipped by students. And then that just repeats to the other ones, and you can go around by this little filtering. The only other thing at the end then that I have to show is the other tab. So the other tab just shows all the other questions. So we have the overall evaluation, and then we have the career question. So this is when we picked the teams, the thematic, the separate teams. I think there were 5 different teams that we could pick. One of them was career, and that one is currently in the report. I will add a selection where you can pick which sub-team you've picked, and it will create a report for that as well. But currently it just generates it for the career. And if you don't have anything, it will just be blank. And that is basically how the report looks. I've shown how to generate it. And if you have any knowledge, and if you know how to edit R, you can go back into the code and you can edit any part of this. You can change the text if you would like to change the text. So there's infinite possibilities for you to edit this in a way that you would like. Maybe just quickly. So if I go here, we see the text here. So if you would like to change the introduction, you can change all the text here, save it, go back here, reload the app, re-download the report, and you have a changed text. So that's how you can adjust the report to your own liking, to your own institution. You can add your name, like the institution name. You can write different report. You can write different comments on the data that you've seen. So it is, if you want, it is completely adjustable, and you can work on it on however you want. If you don't know how to, you can send me an email. I'll have a list of things I'd like to add and change to the report, and I'll be constantly adding this. Currently, I have the PGR survey that I'm going to be working on as well. So I will be adding a report for the PGR student survey as well. And I think that is it for my time, and I will stop sharing my screen now. There we go.
I think it's over to me, Blaž, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, so hi everybody, my name is Linda O'Sullivan. I'm an academic project lead with the Teaching and Learning Unit here in Munster Technological University. And Siobhan, Lydia and Blaž asked me to come here today to talk to you about MTU's standardised automated report for StudentSurvey.ie. So I'm going to start off and say I'm a bit of an imposter here. It was developed by my colleague, Dr. Sean Lacey, who's the Research Integrity and Compliance Officer here in MTU and formerly a Senior Lecturer in the Department of Mathematics. So I'm fairly new to this game as such. So a lot of the credits that I was receiving there earlier, I don't really deserve. So I'll move along swiftly. So this report, this standardized report, was developed as part of a project called SUCCEED, which stands for Standardizing the Use, Communication and Capability of StudentSurvey.ie data. And this project was funded as part of MTU's allocation of the Strategic Alignment of Teaching and Learning Enhancement Fund, which was provided by the National Forum for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning in Higher Education in partnership with the Higher Education Authority. So I suppose the first question is, well, why did we develop this report? So prior to SUCCEED, StudentSurvey.ie data had mainly been used at an institutional level within NTU, as there were concerns about the generalizability of the survey results due to low response rates at an academic unit level and programme level itself. However, given that we have collected data since 2016, it's been possible to produce a reliable and consistent reporting structure for StudentSurvey.ie data at academic unit, so i.e. faculty, school, department level, etc., and programme levels themselves. The reports generated by this automated tool allow us to engage with members from academic units, i.e. students and staff, to close the feedback loop, to celebrate success. They can be used at course board meetings and programmatic reviews, and for coaching and professional development of staff themselves. So a bit like Blaž, just to explain how it works. Firstly, you need to assemble your input data, and that generally consists of 3 data sets. The first one is your population data set. So what we mean by the population data set is the data set that you send to iGraduate by programme each year. So listing basically all of your students enrolled on the various programmes. The second file we call the response or the sample data set, i.e. the data that's returned each year from StudentSurvey.ie once the survey has been completed. And lastly then is a file that you have to kind of create yourself. It's your institute's organizational structure, or what we call our program mapping file. And what that basically does is it maps each program to the relevant academic unit within your organization. So for example, in MTU, a program is mapped to a department is mapped to a school mapped to a faculty, and the faculty is mapped to the university. Secondly then, just as in Blaž's case, you run the app, and this app was developed in R and is run through our studio. So I'm not going to show you it, loading up like Blaž did in our studio, but basically what this app does is it reads in the data files. So the 3 sets of data files mentioned, it displays a dashboard from which a report can be generated, and then it generates the relevant report. So the report itself is a HTML file, but it can equally well be created, or it can be a PDF file as well. It can be changed to that, or a Word document, or whatever format you actually want it to be in. So again, like in Blaž's case, the report itself takes a few minutes to run. So what I did was, instead of running the report live, instead I've created a little video that hopefully you're going to be able to hear, and you just get a kind of brief impression of what it's like to run the report. So I'll just play that video now and just sit back and take a bit of a break for a few minutes.
So this is an example of the dashboard for MTU standardized reports. As you can see in MTU, reports can be produced at 5 different levels. So we can produce a report at the program level by selecting the relevant program code, at the department level by entering the relevant department code, at the school level by entering the relevant school code, at the faculty level by entering the relevant faculty code, and at the university level by entering the relevant university code. So once we've decided on the relevant level and chosen the relevant code, we can just click and generate the report. So I'm just going to show you a quick example here. So say, for example, we wanted to generate a report for the School of Humanities. We can just search here to find the code for humanities, which is 2007. We would then come over here and enter the code 2007 and click Generate Report, and the report would run. So now you see an example of the report that's generated. And what I'm going to do next is just take you through some of the key outputs from this report so you understand how the report can be interpreted.
And just before I move on there, just the caveat here is this part of the report requires a bit of customization, because obviously each HEI has a different organizational structure as such. So some level of customization is necessary for the report at that level. But once that's done, then it's relatively straightforward to create the report itself. So what information is produced? Well, firstly, you get cumulative and year-on-year response rates with the relevant associated margin of error. Secondly, you get a comparison within the university's organizational structure itself across all 10 indicators. And thirdly, you get a year-on-year comparison within a program or academic unit, again, across all 10 indicators. So just to give you an idea, or just to give you an example as such of what that report, the report that I just showed you there previously, what that might look like. So we've got some dummy data that we created for 2016 to 2022. And in the first part of the report, a cumulative response rate, as I said, is produced together with the associated margin of error. In addition, as well as the cumulative response rate, you get year-on-year response rates, also together with the relevant margin of error. Now, why is the margin of error important? Well, in terms of margin of error, often an acceptable margin of error used by survey researchers is one which is less than 8% at the 95% confidence level. Therefore, we've adopted a type of traffic light system that we use when we're discussing these reports with academic units to indicate to the academic unit how generalizable the results of the report are. So the system we use is as follows. We basically tell them if a margin of error is less than 8%, they're getting a green light. So we can say that the results are considered generalizable. If the margin of error is between 8 and 10%, you get an amber light. So the advice would be to proceed with caution in terms of the interpretation of the results themselves. But if the margin of error is in excess of 10%, then you're getting a red light. And that means the results aren't really generalizable. So you shouldn't really overreact to what the report is actually telling you. In terms of the second part of the report then, again, for the sample data that we have for 2016 to 2022, if, for example, a program level report had been generated, then for each of the 10 indicators, an error bar chart like the following would be produced. This chart shows the mean value for the indicator variable and the corresponding 95% confidence interval at each level within the organization. The result for this indicator can then be compared within the university's organizational structure. And the key idea here is to examine the error bars. Where the error bars overlap, we can say the results are broadly consistent. However, when error bars don't overlap, we can say that there is a difference. So in this example, the mean score for higher order learning at the program level is lower than the school, the faculty, and the university. However, it's broadly consistent with the department. Similarly, if this report had been developed at or generated at school level, we would basically be saying that the mean score for higher order learning at the school level is broadly consistent with the faculty and the university itself. In the third part of the report, we get a year-on-year comparison at the appropriate level for each of the 10 indicators. So again, looking at some sample data for 2016 to 2022, if a report had been generated at a particular level, then for each of the 10 indicators, we would get the following. So we would get some numerical descriptive statistics for each year for that indicator. So we get the sample size, the mean, the lower and upper 95% confidence interval, the standard deviation, the median, first quartile, third quartile, min and max values. And in addition, we would get graphical descriptive statistics, again in the form of an error chart across the years for which data is available. Again, interpretation of this error bar chart is similar as when we were doing the organizational comparisons as such, in the sense that if the error bars overlap, we say the results are broadly consistent, and when they don't, we say there's a difference. So in this particular chart here, what we can see is in comparison between 2016 and 2022, for this particular indicator, which would be reflective and integrative learning, that there would seem to be an improvement in this indicator score over those years. And in general, what we're seeing is there's kind of an upward trend. So it gives us a sense that we're doing something right. So if you'd like further information on this report, you can contact the TLU, which I'm a member of, the report developer, Sean Lacey himself, Dr. Sean Lacey, or alternatively, you can contact me. As I said, I've got more familiar with this code in the past while, so I'm able to answer some questions on it. I've provided our email addresses and Twitter handles, or alternatively, you can take a look at the Succeed project page on the TLU website. The URL is given here. Thanks very much for your time and attention. And if anyone is interested in looking at this in a bit more detail, then do please get in touch. And back to you, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Blaj and Linda. I'm just going to share my screen now for a few minutes, and then we'll open things up for questions. Okay, so here we go. Hopefully you can see that okay. So I guess the next bit that I want to talk to you about is the next steps. So what do we do whenever we have all this data and we have the report, the automated reports? So we need to meet the needs of staff, so educational practitioners, policymakers, research, senior management, and support services engage with the survey data, and their needs and the needs of the various users should be considered when utilizing and customizing the reports. So, for example, through lived experience, long and granular level reports of outputs and interpretations might not be best suited to senior staff members. Instead, short and concise reports of the findings for the institutes may be favoured. But then in contrast, educational practitioners may prefer the longer and more robust analysis, which helps them to then find enhancement opportunities on their programs. Not only is it important to be mindful of the needs of the users, but it may indeed be necessary to set up initial meetings as well with users to discuss the needs and the ways in which we can use the automated reports to benefit the different user types. So in terms of the impact as well, while it is paramount that the needs of the users are considered, it may also be useful to discuss the types of analysis that are needed to effectively investigate their concerns as well. So as Linda touched on there, the different importance of errors and different types of analysis that's needed. So it's worth considering this as well, so that we can make sure that we have the most robust types of data available to us. Finally, in terms of actions, by developing interventions solely on literature, we might end up creating interventions that are not feasible or relevant in the context from which the data is collected. And then in contrast, interventions that are based on descriptive statistics only may miss the true information being conveyed in the data. And by designing interventions without consideration of the efforts already made locally and nationally, we might find ourselves recreating the wheels unnecessarily. So while it's often tempting to just jump to a quick solution a strategic and an interdisciplinary approach will better facilitate long-lasting and successful interventions. And the most effective intervention is a co-designed intervention that is created in partnership with both the students and staff. By working in partnership, you can design strategic and feasible interventions that are owned and benefited from by all. Finally, the exploration of the efficacy of an intervention is advised as well. So further considerations of how to do this might be warranted before we even design an intervention from the reporting tools. So what do we hope to gain? What success look like? So a validated intervention evaluation questionnaire or a focus group may be appropriate here. After the intervention is complete, it may also be worth considering who may benefit from the shared successes and or failures of the intervention. It's really important that not only do we use the analysis, but that we also make the changes as well, that we learn from them, that we co-design interventions, because that's what it's there for. So I might finish up with that, folks, and thank you very much. Special thanks to Linda and Blige for presenting. There will be a follow-up email going around for you to fill out around, it's a survey for you to give your feedback, which we would very much appreciate if you could fill that out. So again, thank you everyone. And do we have any questions? Yes. Roisin, yes.
Very, very, very interesting. You can't, you couldn't possibly estimate if I could get the capability within my organization to do this, how much hassle it would help. So Blige, I want to know what your hourly rate is. whether you want to come to visit us in Dublin, you're more than welcome. The one thing I think with Linda's, and I don't know, Siobhan might be able to answer here, is we already in the information we provide to iGraduate use the academic unit 1 and academic unit 2 fields. So that was a great help to us. So that means essentially that the iGraduate get our organizational structure in that first, so we wouldn't have to do your third file. The other question, I suppose, is to Siobhan. Siobhan would be great if, I don't know, I'm going to send an email to our department, our School of Computer Science, saying, does anybody provide training in our studio? So, I mean, that would be, I don't know whether that's something that Thea or somebody else could organize, but I mean, obviously we have staff that use SPVS and, you know, other kinds of software like that, but not specific to our studio. So a couple of things there, one is training, one is the other, whether for Linda, whether universities or HEIs that provide that data, whether your process would be required, or whether that's already sort of taken care of by the fact that we provide that data to iGraduate in the first instance.
Roisin, I'll just come back to you on that. So I suppose, and I could be wrong, Siobhan, you can correct me here. Academic Unit 1 and Academic Unit 2, that data or those fields were only added in the last few years. So
yes,
so we've gone back to 26. So we've assembled our program mapping file going back to 2016. In addition, because within our organization we have departments, we have schools, we have faculties, we have, do you know what I mean? So Academic Unit 1 and Academic Unit 2 won't actually cut it. So we did have to assemble the file. Now it's a bit of work, but it's possible. So that's what, like, so yes, Academic Unit 1 and Academic Unit 2 are now available. So that's a starting point, but then you might have to do a small bit more manipulation in order to get your full spread across the organization units.
Okay.
And then Roisin, I'll come in, thanks for that, Linda. Roisin, I'll come in on your second question there. I think what makes this particular tool so effective in my mind is that there's absolutely no need for anyone in your organization to be able to use RStudio. And that's the beauty of it.
But just in terms, Siobhan, as Brad said, in terms of putting in your institution name, in terms of changing the introduction, you know, there might be some amendments, like, you know, edit amendments that you'd want to do to customize it, you know, put in your organizational logo or something like that. So, I mean, I'm not, you know, obviously the less intervention, the better, as far as I'm concerned, because the more you intervene, the more opportunity you have of introducing error. But what I would say is that, you know, if somebody comes back, if it goes to quality committee for the first time and quality committee says, I want you to change this, this, and this, we still have to be able to respond. So, you know, while I don't want to take out a master's in RStudio, I just think that, you know, in the same way that if you're using Dreamweaver to do a website, you know, you have to have some ability to respond to institutional requests. So.
Absolutely. So that kind of light touch stuff should be a fairly easy thing that we might be able to pick up on. I would just add to what Lydia mentioned there around the survey that I'll be sending out is very much about your needs as potential users of this to get it up and running in your institutions. So as much as we want feedback on the report itself, it's very much about your you know, the issues that you see around adopting this in your institutions and what you would need to support you in order to get it up and running in your institution. So I think, Roisin, that'll be an opportunity for you to maybe put a line or two in around that particular need. And for colleagues on the call, any other kind of barriers that you might anticipate or where you might anticipate that you need supports, please do let me know, because that can inform the types of supports that we develop for this very, very important tool.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Teresa?
Thank you very much. Mine kind of follows on from the last question, and it relates to, say, she'll only be familiar with this, that we've been talking to her about it, and she has facilitated us as well, that we have subjects. So let's say for, say, arts programs or science programs, students can take up to maybe 4 subjects in their first year, and then they specialize after that. So my question is, would we be able to incorporate this into the report? See that Blas is kind of so lovingly outlined there. And then if we can do that, can we customize it so that we just do it once and then we can run it from year on year on? Is that, I'm not asking for an answer now, but is it feasible? Do you think that it's possible to do that with a little bit of work?
Yeah.
I might pass that to Linda and Blas.
Yeah, for my report, it's definitely possible. Like, I've tried to make it as easy as possible to get it running. So it's mainly does everything in the background. So it takes the academic units. So anything you have in the academic unit will be in the faculty and the other location I have. So whatever you have in there, it will display in those graphs. What you will have to do is just change the name. So, and once you change that in the report, it stays there. So if you decide to change something, you can rerun it and then it stays there and it's there. You can perhaps change the Excel file that you load in. So for example, you have a school that you're particularly interested in. You can filter the Excel file for that school, upload it, and just run it, and it will only show results for that school.
Ooh, wow.
So that might then help as well by filtering. But as I said, like, the report was made for like a generally like small college, so I'm not sure how well it'll do with any bigger institutions. I've tried to cover all the bases. If, for example, some graphs don't look right, again, like, either email me and I can fix it. I can show you how to like do it yourself, because it's not that difficult at the end anyways. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of options to edit and change the logos, change the text, change the colors, all of that.
Can I clarify the question just to make sure that I'm making myself clear? In the school, say for instance, we have one school and they offer 3 subjects. So the student will be registered to their program, and in the iGraduate information, they would be registered, say, to, I'm trying to think, they're registered as a student, but we wouldn't actually align them. We can't use the academic unit 1 or 2 because it doesn't work for most of our students, especially for first year. So what I'm talking about is your report dependent on what's coming from iGraduate, that we use that? So I'm talking about trying to customize it afterwards in order that we can facilitate and break it up into the student individual by subject. So we might have one student doing 4 subjects, so we'd have to break up their data 4 times. So we can't bring it back together again into a faculty, because then one student will be counted 4 times.
Yeah, like it's made to run straight from the raw data that you get from iGraduate.
Okay.
What you could do is you could go in the Excel file and look at the academic unit 1 and 2, even what you get from iGraduate, delete that line and add your academic unit 3 in there, and it'll run the report as well. But you only still have only the 2 units, because that's how you get it out of iGraduate. Now, again, there's infinite possibilities. If there's like more institutions that would need a better breakdown, it's easy enough to create that for like later on in a separate report for that as well. So it's just depending on the needs, and it should be fairly simple then to add more academic units if needed.
Okay. You've given me hope. Thank you.
Any more questions, folks? I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Special thanks to Linda and Blaj for their amazing developments and presentations. Thanks as always to Siobhan for everything that she does. And thanks to everyone for attending. And again, if you can, please do fill out the survey afterwards that you'll be receiving via email from Siobhan. Siobhan, is there anything else that you'd like to point out?
I think other than just to thank you, Lydia, as chair, and indeed somebody who's been a great mind behind the development of this and thinking about its application and thinking about how to both contextualize it within the higher education sector and thinking very strategically about how to make the best use that we can of it in our institutions. So I will thank you, and indeed thank Linda, Sean and Blaj for the tremendous work that they have done on the development of this really, really special tool.
Thank you. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks very much.